Happy birthday to Half-Life 2. My goodness, it's been 20 years. I mean, my God. Could you believe Half-Life 2, 2004? 2024. Yeah, I mean, anything I say here is gonna really be underselling how much I love, the Half-Life franchise and you know, um, particularly Half-Life 2 in general. But I remember the day I got it, Half-Life 2. I'm like, holy fucking shit. And I was so worried because throughout my PC gaming experience, it's always been like, will my PC run this shit? Because when you're a kid, your parents get you a PC and it's like a piece of crap. So having games run right is always a total gamble, right? But Valve always figured out their shit, But I was playing on my GeForce 4000 card or whatever it was. And I remember it was so bad that some of the objects in the game would not render right. So they would disappear beyond 2 meters, right? But it ran fine. And I remember, it came also with Counter-Strike Source. And I remember like, holy shit, And this is before Gmod too, and when Gary's mod came out, like, your creativity really exploded. But yeah, I really can't state how much I love Half-Life 2. I've done many streams of it, done many mods and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, I remember watching the E3 footage in 2003 with Trap Town, it was called, and I was just like, this is going to be the best game ever. It was one of those games where I felt like video games were about to transcend what they were before. Like, we're on the next level now with the ragdoll physics and the Source engine. Like, holy fuck. And still to this day, I think Half-Life 2 holds up incredibly well. I think the gameplay is really tight. It flows really well. All the chapters in the game is good, maybe except the Strider battle outside the big building. But yeah, the Half-Life 2, my goodness, it is one of the rare exceptions where Half-Life, one of the greatest video games of all time, has an equally as good sequel. Like, I don't know how the fuck they pulled it off. But if you're wondering if I watched the Half-Life 2 20-year anniversary, I did. And I'll say this, it was exhilarating to watch episode 3 footage, even though it was very early, work in progress, knowing that they put an ice gun in the game and they had these like blob enemies follow you around was very, very cool. But Valve's reasoning for why they didn't release it was just the same old shit and it wouldn't have been up to standards, which I respect. But in a way, I feel, God damn it, I wouldn't have cared. You know what I mean? If it was still an episodic thing, I just wanted closure. I wanted like all right, there we go. And then I would have been like, all right, but Half-Life 3 is when they get really meaty again with the content. But, but it's ultimately the decision. And most of the people that worked on episode 3 worked on, Left 4 Dead 2 and Portal 2. So you can definitely see some traces from that little early gameplay that they showed, that it would later fraction off into the other things. But sorry for my long-winded speech about this. But again, I wish I had the right words and terminology and vernacular to properly express my gratitude for this game, and especially the community that it spawned. I mean, the hours I played Counter-Strike Source with Zombie Run, meeting random friends on Steam. I mean, this game really changed my life. As corny as that might sound, I think back of like the mid-2000s, you're just playing the shit out of this. And then you have the orange box too. I mean, I know this might be a nostalgia thing or whatever, but I felt the mid-2000s around the orange box, 2008, was some of the best years of fucking PC gaming ever, right? And you could say like, oh, yeah, that's because, you were born in the 90s early on, but I feel really specifically around that part when I was in high school playing that shit, it just seemed like gaming was on fire, man. Like everything that came out was just classics, But I don't know, it's just my opinion. But yeah, I kind of miss the Miss Sven Co-op. I know that's more gold source rather than actual source, but especially the modding scene on Steam. And this was before Steam even had a friends feature. Me and my friend always joked around about this. Was on MSN Messenger. We're like, yeah, let's use the friend function to talk to each other. It wouldn't even fucking work, But I'm sure you're also wondering, am I going to be playing Team Fortress 2 at some point? I will do that on the Hannah Montana return stream, which might happen at the end of the year. We'll see. But yeah, the Team Fortress 2, I'll say, I know a lot of people really love Team Fortress 2. I have a kind of a bad perspective on Team Fortress 2 because I mostly just played on a map called Mario_Kart in uppercase. And, you know, I didn't really get into item trading or anything like that, but I enjoyed Team Fortress 2 as well. But I think on the orange box, episode 1 and 2, actually more specifically episode 2, like Half-Life 2 and episode 2, just fucking, as corny as it is, peak gaming, you know. But anyway, guys, my anecdotal bullshit aside, that is just boring to listen to, I'm going to play some Half-Life 2 here, and what they've done since the 20-year anniversary celebration, they've added some updates to the game. They've done some like random bug fixes and graphical updates. And on top of that, they've added a kind of like how the Lost Coast was produced. There's developer commentary made by the Valve development team. And in Half-Life 2, they've recorded a completely new commentary thing for it. And I've never checked that out. This is the first time I do it. But apparently they give a explanation behind the purple-black checkerboard missing texture. People have been notified me about that, so I'm going to check that out. But this is not going to be a normal Half-Life 2 stream. It's going to be a little different. I'm sure you'll see why. So, you know, hey. Anyway, let's get this on screen and play it. So is that holy shit Gary's mod lore? Okay. Oh yeah, but before we begin, this month is going to have a lot of Half-Life 2 content. I started doing the map labs a little bit. I'm also going to be checking out a quote-unquote episode 3 fan recreation. There's going to be that, and at some point we'll also play Half-Life Deathmatch with each other, because I know that's been highly requested, but I kind of want to set up an own server for it, because I don't want to go into a random, like, server and disrupt people, you know? But we'll have that too. I actually played Sven Co-op literally 2 days ago. Me and Frank, we were playing a Contra map that was pretty good actually. And there was another default map in Sven Co-op we played. It's kind of like a, I forget what it's called, but it's like a almost Pokemon monster fight battle thing where you gotta like race your monsters and mutate them into like other monsters. It was really fun. I forgot what it's called. BMSTS, that's what it's called. Yeah. Really, really fun, you know. But alright guys, I've talked enough. I've wasted your time. Let's play some goddamn Half-Life 2. There we go. Steam Input games. This game has native support for Steam Input. I could not imagine playing Half-Life 2 with a controller. I mean, I know some people did that on the Xbox back in the day, but yeah, okay. Joel discovering auto battlers. Is that what it's called? Okay, by the way, the intro videos to Half-Life 2 has always been updated to a higher bitrate or like higher quality. Okay, let's see here. Let me just put this on screen for you. There we go, that should be it. And here we go, Half-Life 2 20-year anniversary. The menu has been updated too, so you have episode 1 and 2 included. And I believe Steam, or Valve rather, has made this game free! My question is Counter-Strike Source also free? For this week? Oh, okay. Guys, just make it free forever, come on. No. Alright, well. Let's get it, dude. Enable commentary track, yes. Alright, let's see how different this game is now that it's been updated for 20 years. Maybe G-Man will have like a higher quality texture or something like that. I'm not sure. But let's check it out. That's a little bit of a weird decision, but alright. Let me up the mouse here. Hey man.
So you get no matter how many times I've been relocated, I never get used to it.
Okay. Unrelated, but big shout out. This is a website that doesn't exist anymore. Very niche group of people will know what the fuck this is. The 99% of the rest of you will not know what it is. Shoutouts to phwcomics.com or net or whatever the fuck it was. I used to read these fucking comics and it was like a guy called Concerned Citizen. It was this guy that was just basically this guy. And he would just walk around and people would mistake it for Gordon Freeman, I think.
End of the line.
That's a weird sound.
Welcome to City 17.
Huh.
You have chosen or been chosen to relocate to one of our finest remaining urban centers. I thought so much of City 17 that I elected to establish my administration here in the citadel so thoughtfully provided by our benefactor. I've been proud to call City 17 my home.
So, you might have noticed that this game looks a little different.
The only ones on that train?
And, chat might have... This is gonna drive me insane. I might have to disable this mod. I'm gonna throw up. Holy fuck. I don't mean mod. Stepping on shit feeling. Alright, Did I not turn the commentary on? Maybe I haven't reached one of them yet.
Welcome to City 17.
They're broken with mods. Mods are conflicting them. Okay. Well, how about this? We play with the mods, I mean the remaster here, just for a few seconds more, before I go totally insane. And then we'll check out the vanilla game. Hey man.
They never leave. You never see them go. They're always full. No one ever gets on, but they're always departing, but they never arrive.
Ah, Mr. Best.
Welcome to City 17.
But Joey, this is vanilla. Yeah. Did you mod this? No. Why do they have cat ears? Okay. Seriously, the fucking Squidward sound is gonna drive me fucking bonkers. Oh. Okay. CJ?
This must be a mistake. I got a standard relocation coupon just like everybody else.
Oh my god. Welcome. Welcome to San Andreas. Guys, can I please fix this up just for a second? No. You want this? It's driving me insane! No, keep it. Okay, fine! No, I'm good. No, you made your bed, now sleep in it. Okay.
About that beer I owed you. It's me, Gordon. Barney from Black Mesa. Sorry for the scare. I had to put on a show for the cameras.
Oh.
I'm working undercover with civil protection. I can't take too long or they'll get suspicious. I'm way behind on my beating quota.
Okay.
Yes, Barney, what is it? I'm in the middle of a critical
Hey, Vinesauce Michael here.
test.
Sorry, Doc, but look who's here.
Great Scott! Gordon Freeman! More warning.
Yeah, you and me both, Doc. He was about to board the express to Nova Prospect.
Well, Barney, what do you intend?
I'm thinking.
Alex is around here somewhere. She would have a better idea how to get him here.
I should play this with the
As long
E3
as he
camera.
stays away from checkpoints, we should be
I've done this
okay.
joke many times,
Listen,
but
I gotta go,
this is
Doc. We're
E3
taking
camera.
enough chances as it is.
Very well. And, Gordon, good to see you.
Okay, Gordon. You're gonna have to make your own way to Dr. Kleiner's lab. Oh, man, that's what I was afraid of. Get in here, Gordon, before you blow my cover.
I hate that shit.
Get through that window and keep going.
Okay.
Plaza. I'll meet up with you later.
I'm gonna puke, Joey. Oh? The fuck? It's okay. I thought some mod shit was gonna happen. Oh, here's the commentary. Okay. Hijinks will wait. I just want to hear this.
Pick up that can. Contextualizing tutorials, creating a story scenario in which they happen, lets us do more than just stop the game to teach players something. We get to add narrative value to the moment. Here, teaching the player how to throw objects is combined with a narrative setup that gives them a choice in how to respond. After watching the Metro cops casually abuse citizens, it felt right to put the player in a similar position next. If they had opinions on how the citizens should have reacted, now they get to express them. Playtest.
Do you mind if I turn on subtitles for this? Just for like, you know, reading.
Showed most players either complied or refused the request to pick up the can, but some tried to avoid the confrontation entirely. Others would comply initially, then retaliate after feeling humiliated. By keeping the moment relatively constrained in both terms of player actions and the space itself, we could generally react appropriately to whatever choice they made.
Okay, so I got 13 more to listen to, but I think I gotta enable closed caption for this. There we go. Alright guys, here's how the pros do it. Alright. Who's in line here? Oh, he's looking for his lunchies or whatever the fuck.
Stop that.
Okay. Oh, Jesus! Right, okay.
Early in a Half-Life game, one of our goals is to make promises to the player, giving them a sense of what to expect later on. From movies to TV shows and books, all great entertainment does this in some way, and video games are no different. The promises in a Half-Life game can take different forms. Some are simple, like offering just a glimpse of something intriguing. Others are more layered, like the interactions with Metro cops. By putting the player in a powerless position against them, we set the stage for that future moment when they can finally get to retaliate.
Right. Cool. You got your lunchies? I think I missed the commentary thing too. But check this out.
Playtesting. Playtesting is a core part of how we make games. We can never fully predict how players will respond or what they'll take away from what we built. So we test to learn and hopefully improve. During a playtest, we don't guide or talk to the player, even if they're stuck, as it's extremely unlikely that we'll be sitting there next to the player once the game ships. Our goal is for testers to forget that they're playtesting altogether and play as if they're at home. Any interruptions risk skewing the data, so we only step in if there's a bug that's blocking progress, or more rarely, if their behavior is so confusing that we need to understand what they're thinking.
Right. I always wanted to get one of these things. One of my favorite jokes or Easter eggs or whatever, I keep bringing this up, but it's seriously one of my favorite video games things ever, because it's the most fucked up shit I've read. It's in Half-Life Alyx, when you see what the flavor of these rations are, and it says water flavor. And it reminds me of a skit from Limmy. Tastes like fuck all. Okay.
The Citadel. We wanted the player's first view of City 17 to highlight the Citadel and its dominance over the city, representing the Combine's complete and total power over humanity. It also needed to serve as a clear goal. Even at the start, you can see where your journey ends. But despite its massive size, playtesters often missed it. A player's sense of depth and scale can be tricky on a computer monitor. If you've played any games in VR, you'll likely have noticed that scale feels more natural. Anyway, in this case, the Citadel's position above the player didn't help things either, which may be because FPS games train players to focus straight ahead or down at their feet. To improve the chances of players taking in the Citadel, we added birds flying towards the structure. A subtle trick we found helps guide the player's view.
Okay, I guess the VR thing with the scale is more appropriate, but if I have anything to say about scale in video games, this is really stupid. But you know when the what do you call it? The Citadel is on full alert, and all these things fly out. And I believe they're just scanners like this. They're fucking huge in terms of scale. Like, they're big tanks, you know? But I get it, they're just meant to be like, you know, but whatever. Alright, let's see what else we have.
Ropes. One of the things we noticed in all of the reference images that we gathered for City 17 was that there were cables and wires everywhere, and that they were a large part of the high-frequency detail in view. We love the look of these older European cities enmeshed in the haphazard web of modern life. We felt like we needed a solution for cables, ropes, and similar elements, and we wanted them to be dynamic. Our level designers were eager to create plug puzzles, and connecting a cord to each plug helped players better understand the mechanics. Early in production, we built a rope system and iterated on it throughout development. Under the hood, each rope is made of multiple segments stretched between the two endpoints, and they can move independently. Each segment acts like a spring and responds to forces in the game, such as a gentle wind or the passing of a Combine gunship overhead. When rendered, each segment is shown facing the camera and is bump mapped, which is crucial for giving the ropes a realistic, rounded appearance.
I think a lot of the details in this game is stuff you don't notice. That's one of my favorite things about especially Hideo Kojima games, where like it doesn't necessarily need to be in the game. It's just like it makes the world feel alive because you're not being shown it immediately, right? But that's one thing I always loved about Valve games. They have a special keen attention to detail where sometimes you don't even feel like you're... This sounds corny, I know. But because the worlds are so established, you kind of stop thinking of it as a video game, where it's just like an immersion of like, holy shit, I'm really here, you know?
Playtesting Anecdote 1. One memorable playtest reminded us
Dota
that
2
we
has
can
this
never be certain
feeling.
what players are thinking or what lessons they've taken from their experience. This tester, after playing from the start and stuck trying to open a door, spent several minutes going back and forth between the game and the keyboard settings.
Really?
When we asked what they were looking for, they said they were searching for the inventory controls, thinking they could use an item they'd picked up earlier to unlock the door.
What?
While we'd seen them collect and drop several physics objects, they'd misunderstood what was happening.
What?
The tester believed that pressing the use key while holding an object moved it into an
I
inventory.
guess it's 2003
dropped
here
straight
at this
down.
point, so...
We knew it was just gravity, but their assumption wasn't crazy. Some adventure games of that era did slide items into an invisible inventory that way.
I guess.
We
But did you
explained
play
there was no
Half-Life 1?
inventory, and the playtest continued. Later, we considered whether we needed to address this, but since no other playtesters had the same confusion, and all of our potential solutions were more heavy-handed than necessary, we decided it was an outlier that was okay to remain unaddressed.
Wow.
It served as a good reminder, though, of how even the most subtle, overlooked details can mislead a player.
You know, that's actually kind of funny, because imagine being that playtester that played this way back, and you play this now, 20 years later, like, holy shit, I nearly fucked the entire game up.
Strider. This simple moment is a promise that you'll encounter this enormous thing later in the game. Even an uncomplicated scene such as this really does require a lot of playtesting and iteration because of Half-Life's goal of not taking control away from the player. As you can imagine, it takes a lot of small tweaks to ensure that as many players as possible are looking at the right place at the right time here. The street layout and the Metrocop scene are all set to guide the player's gaze, perfectly framing the Strider when it appears.
Yeah, what? What are you gonna do about it, huh? Dumbass cat can't get up! Okay.
Early game exploration. Up until this plaza, the player likely hasn't had to think much about their path, as it's been clear and straightforward. But here, we wanted to encourage exploration, which meant making the way forward less obvious, which can produce a feeling of being lost or, worse, confused, as you might expect. These kinds of shifts can be tough, especially early in the game, when the player is still learning the game's guidance cues. Here, it's further complicated by force-fielded checkpoints, which allow NPC citizens to move through, but restrict the player, leading many playtesters to believe that there was a way to bypass them. Ultimately, it was extensive testing that helped us find the right visibility for the alley forward, using lighting, layout, and a wooden crate, an object players have already used as a sign they're headed in the right direction. all to subtly guide them forward.
Interesting. I was gonna say, when I first played this, someone in the chat goes, "My fucking eyes!" Well, my keyboard... Wait, is it my controller? Let me feel how this feels on the controller real quick. Awful. Okay. But there's a lot of, like, subtle ways to, tell the player, "Go here, you dumb fuck," you know? Did I miss a note, by the way? I don't think I did. Hey, guys.
This is how it always starts. First the building, then the whole block. They have no reason to come to our place. Don't worry, they'll find one.
I think I missed this one in particular, right?
Closed captions.
Well.
During Half-Life 2 development, we were approached by folks interested in accessibility who encouraged us to go beyond the subtitle system we had built for Half-Life 1.
Well.
They requested a full-featured closed captioning system to capture all game sounds, not just dialogue. This turned out to be a much tougher challenge than expected. Half-Life 2 produced a wide variety of sounds, and categorizing them for captions was crucial. Prioritization was also key. Dialogue needed to stand out, and it had to be clear who was speaking. Ambient sounds, like distant combat, were important for setting the mood in some levels, but less so if there was an enemy shooting nearby. Our level designers also often reuse sounds in different contexts, so sound might require captioning in one area, but not in another. Ultimately, every sound in the game ended up with its own caption data, formatted almost like a small version of HTML, giving us control over the visual style of each caption. As with the audio files, the caption data was too large to keep in memory, so we built an asynchronous caching system to handle it efficiently.
Physics Simulation 2. Areas where game design or other constraints impacted the physical simulation often required extra tuning to keep the simulation from blowing up. As an example, early on we experimented with increasing the simulation on the player entity, which is to say, make player movement much more a part of the physical simulation of the world. We knew this might make movement feel less precise, but hoped it could lead to some novel experiences. However, after tuning the movement to match the less simulated version, we hit a major problem. The physical force needed for the player to move at their usual speed was so high that simply running into other simulated objects could result in death from the impact. We iterated on it, but ultimately couldn't find a solution we liked, and reverted to the less simulated movement. However, this wasn't exactly the easier path. It introduced new challenges with how the less simulated player interacted with the more simulated objects in the game. But it did allow us to deliver the precise movement experience we wanted.
Alright. What about this one?
Physics simulation.
Oh, we ought to do that one. Haven't done this.
Crate Baby.
Oh!
This small baby doll has a long legacy.
Really?
During the long months of internal testing, some of the team turned it into a challenge, a way to make the 47th playthrough of a game a bit more fun. They'd place the doll inside of a nearby blue crate and see how far they could carry it throughout the game.
Oh!
After Half-Life 2 launched, the community started carrying Crate Baby as well, adding their own stories and rules to the mix. A few years later, while working on Episode 2, this was the inspiration for the Little Rocket Man achievement.
Oh, really?
Where players had to carry a garden gnome dubbed Gnome Chomsky throughout the entire episode. Chomsky even made a comeback for Left 4 Dead 2 in the Garden Gnome achievement, where players had to carry him through the Dark Carnival campaign. These kind of interactions with players are some of the most rewarding parts of game development. We design games with theories in mind, but you never really know where things are going until players get their hands on it.
I did not know this was even a thing people did. Crate Baby. Oh! Okay, well, hang on. Wait. Watch this. Damn it. I heard that, this doll... I must talk a little bit about how this game was developed. I mean, I shouldn't be talking about when the developers can do a objective way of doing it, but I've heard that this game was meant to have children in it, creepily enough, right? Because the original, Half-Life 2 release was much darker, right? And they kind of want to, like, just give you a creepy, like, ooh, this world is really messed up. Like, there are no children anymore. Here's just this doll, you know? Okay, watch this. Oh. Oh, there you are. Have my son. Okay. It's somehow worse that there are no children. I like extrapolating a little bit of lore from just the game. And one of the reasons is that humanity is getting totally sterilized in Half-Life 2. And people are forgetting about it because the water is literally like mind bleach. But that's also creates a really funny thing in episode 1, where the suppression field is, you know, gone, and Kleiner is, again, verbatim from the game, it's like, you guys should start fucking, you know.
Materials and shaders. Half-Life 2 came out in the midst of a significant shift in 3D graphics, where the industry moved from textures to materials and shaders. In Half-Life 1, every surface had a texture, essentially an image wrapped onto the polygons of the surface. But by Half-Life 2, just 5 years later, every surface had both a material and a shader. The shader was a lump of code that customized how the surface was rendered. The material defined properties for how the surface behaved physically and how it responded to gameplay features. It also held references to textures and other parameters for the shader to use for rendering. As a result, artists and designers had much more control over how things looked and behaved. However, this came with a trade-off. Half-Life 1 could run on a computer with only a CPU, but Half-Life 2 required a GPU because
really?
of the computations needed for materials.
Maybe that's why I could play Half-Life 1 so good back in the day.
GPU hardware. The refracting glass door here is a clear example of a custom shader, but every surface in the scene is actually running
software rendering. Yeah, that's right. Fuck. Apparently I missed a note, by the way, by the slide, so we're gonna go back there and check it out. By the way, if you think that it's just annoying for me to, like, play the game and just listen to this, that it's kind of boring, you know, my apologies, but I'm just kind of curious myself to what the developers have to say, and I don't want to be talking over what they have to say, you know? So I'm just kind of, like, listening and just checking it out with you guys, so...
Playground. When we discussed ways to highlight our physics simulation around the city environment, a playground felt like the natural fit. And for players paying attention to Dr. Breen, it's also a reminder of the cost of humanity's surrender to the Combine. We chose a few playground structures with interesting physics potential and began tuning them. Even with the advanced physics simulation we had at the time, setups like this always required hand tuning, as we had fully simulated objects interacting with non- or partially simulated ones, such as the player or static world geometry. It might be easy to assume that a simulation can carry a lot of the load of implementation, but even now, 20 years later, that is rarely the case. Back when we were working on the playground, late in development on the game, we couldn't get the friction on the slide to feel right, so we decided to break the ladder so the player couldn't get up there. However, you still can just walk right up the front. As is commonly the case, you, the player, get the last laugh on us.
You know, I maybe this is just me talking nostalgia here, but I feel this world with its, at the time, kind of simple physics, I don't think enough games highlight the fact that they have such advanced simulations inside of it, right? Just the fact that you can do all this stuff. I wish games utilize more of that sort of physics stuff in this. I still think this physics in this game, I mean, at the time, it was like divine intervention how amazing this was. But to this day, I'm like, damn, I wish more games did more, like, fuck around with the world to defeat your enemies and stuff like that. You know, like, you know, whatever. But yeah, it's mind-boggling, like, that they took the decision to, like, make the game engine just work within the context of the game, you know, like... Dark Messiah, yeah, that's a good game, actually. You skip one, Joey? Oh, hang on, let me walk back. We're not gonna listen to every single one, so if I miss one, and it's like, whatever, I had that one, you know, I was about to say I have tuned out of the Squidward thing, but we could replay the intro real quick, because apparently the developer notes did not go in. But let me just play a little bit more of this. I'll get to the lab, and then we'll play it from the beginning, and then you know, that'll kind of be it for this, because I have a lot of shit I want to show off otherwise. But I thought it said Aga for a minute. Battlefield 4 does use the physics environment really well. You know, it is a really, really good game, and it gets no love. People do not talk about this game. People don't even recognize this game anymore. Battlefield, what's it called? Bad Company. Bad Company had some of the best fucking weapon sound effects ever. You know?
Cube maps. With the addition of materials and shaders, we needed a solution for reflective surfaces like glass and steel. These surfaces had to know what to reflect, but in 2003 we couldn't do any of that rendering in real time.
2003.
So we developed the cube map system for pre-computed reflections. A cube map is a set of 6 images on the inside of a cube, capturing the environment in every direction, like a panoramic photo that surrounds you on all sides. Level designers placed invisible marker entities throughout the levels, and during map compilation, we generate a cube map at each marker. Then, during gameplay, when rendering a reflective surface, we locate the nearest pre-computed cube map to create the reflection.
Field of view. In Half-Life 1, we used a 90-degree field of view, or FOV, which was fairly standard for first-person shooters at the time. But during Half-Life 2's development, we grew unhappy with it. With our game's focus on characters, we'd put extensive effort into detailed facial and body animations. But the 90-degree FOV just didn't allow players to get close enough to fully appreciate that detail.
Mr. FOV.
So we began experimenting with a tighter FOV, and ultimately landed on 75 degrees. It took some adjustment for both us and players, and it required an additional FOV for view models, which are the player's weapon, held at the bottom of the screen. Their models were originally built with 90 degrees in mind, so they looked distorted at 75. But this change succeeded in doing what we wanted,
Joey Devon
putting
chat.
our characters front and center in the game.
Interesting, okay. I never... The one thing that I don't get with you guys in particular, I don't mind FOV that much. Because a lot of people want to play with 120. The only problem with FOV is when it's too zoomed in, like Turok and shit like that. But generally, I'm like, that's fine, whatever. Because I always feel like what the game gives you standard vanilla is oftentimes the intended way of experiencing the game, right? It doesn't always need to be Quake. Holy shit, there it is.
Reference maps. As our characters grew more lifelike between Half-Life 1 and Half-Life 2, we wanted the game world to feel equally realistic. In Half-Life 1, the limitations of first-person games often made it easier to lean on stylized or abstracted environments. But with Half-Life 2, we set out to create a setting that felt grounded in reality, which meant focusing on a lot of small details we hadn't before. One of our main steps was creating reference maps to standardize how we'd map real-world proportions into the game. These maps establish details like wall and door dimensions, doorknob heights, interior lighting, furniture scale, and the general scale of common objects. We created standardized textures for level designers, complete with scale and lighting values. The layouts would be consistent from the start. Besides setting up the physical world, these reference maps defined how the player would move through it, how high they could jump, how low they could duck, and the size of spaces like vents. Using these maps as foundation, we were able to keep our world geometry consistent and ensure realistically sized spaces across the game.
Right. Okay.
It's all going to end.
Don't worry, we have Lunchables.
Please.
Missing material.
Oh.
Early on in developing our low-level graphics code,
Mhm.
we realized it would be difficult to spot polygons that weren't rendering due to a missing texture.
Right.
When this happened, you typically just see black where the polygon should be,
Mhm.
which could easily go unnoticed in darker scenes.
Oh.
To catch this bug more reliably, we created an error texture that would be visually unmistakable and
Right.
generated automatically whenever a texture failed to load.
Uh-huh.
This gave rise to the now iconic purple and black checkerboard texture, which has since taken on a life of its own well beyond Half-Life 2.
Okay, that makes sense. I thought it was just like... I don't know why I justified it in my head, but like, that's what happens in all video games. It's always purple.
Missing material. Missing material.
Okay. Interesting. I forget, I was watching the Half-Life 20-year anniversary documentary, and they said a lot of the interior shots here is based on, like, was it Bulgaria or something like that? Like, they were showing this bathroom, and they were like, yeah, this is kind of like where I grew up or something. Alright. By the way. Gotta do it. Okay. What is this one about?
The raid. The section ahead
No
where
shit.
the Metro cops raid the apartment
Section
players
ahead.
inside took a lot of iteration to get right. Generally, we design Half-Life to let players set their own pace, since people move through the game in a variety of ways.
Hmm.
Some players run, ignoring anything that doesn't seem like
He
a
sounds so
threat,
scared.
while others methodically poke at everything. So, whenever we need to force a specific pace, it's always a challenge to ensure players perceive that pace and naturally play along. Since this is the first time we do this, we had to put in a lot of work to make it clear to the player that they needed to move quickly, and there's no time for exploration here.
All right. I hope they don't put too many notes here as I'm running through here, because this is, again, where I got to start running, you know?
The Raid 2. In addition to making sure the player felt pressure to move forward, we had to ensure the raid itself was foolproof. There couldn't be any way for the player to avoid it or double back past the Metro cop. The real challenge wasn't that players would try to break the scene, but that many would panic and run in random directions once they realized they were under threat for the first time. This moment requires a delicate balance. We wanted a heart-pounding escape, the sense of real danger, but we wanted players to make it through on their first try and feel like they escaped by the skin of their teeth. To achieve this, we kept the path ahead clear and reminiscent to the one they had just taken through the previous floor. A series of carefully placed triggers controls the threats appearing ahead and behind, maintaining the pressure while still giving players enough time to stay ahead of their pursuers.
Okay. All right. It's like a cheap haunted house. All right. I have to play this for real now, so.
The rooftop chase sequence posed a unique design challenge. We didn't want it to be a true gameplay obstacle, and our best case was for players to make it through on their first try. But we still wanted to create the sense of real danger, where players felt legitimately threatened if they didn't keep moving. The challenge was that without the HEV suit, players don't technically have a heads-up display or HUD, which means no way to show damage or remaining health. After some experimenting, we created a special health system for this section, using a red glow.
It sounds like Joe Rogan.
Damage. Players reacted as we hoped, taking it as a sign to keep moving, and the chase unfolded as intended. To top it off, we made health regenerate quickly so the glow wouldn't linger, reinforcing to players that running was indeed the right choice, and ensuring players weren't taken down by a stray bullet at the end just because they dawdled or hesitated earlier on.
Interesting.
Playtesting anecdote 2. In the upcoming
What a
section,
badass
we needed
name.
the player to be knocked down so Alex could save them. With limited time and resources, we simplified the encounter as much as possible, reusing existing systems and letting it play out like a normal combat sequence, with a custom event triggered when the player died. After a few playtests to fine-tune the timing, we moved on. But as we got close to shipping, we encountered a problem with a playtester who quick-saved constantly and immediately hit quick load whenever they thought they'd failed.
Oh.
When a Metro cop hit them, they quick loaded before Alex could step in, repeating this more than 10 times before we asked them to stop.
Oh.
At this stage of development, in the final bug fixing phase, we had to limit ourselves to fixing only game-breaking issues, since even small changes could risk breaking something more important. Knowing this was a rare edge case, because most players had no trouble, we made a few conservative changes. We shortened the delay between the knockdown and Alex's first line, and changed the fade-out color to white instead of black, which wasn't ultimately that useful since players hadn't died enough yet to associate black with death. We considered disabling quick load for the few seconds that the scene plays out, but we
Okay.
were worried that could introduce a bug where quick load became disabled permanently.
Wow. I say this, thank God I never became a video game playtester, because all games would be complete vomit, okay? Like, it would make no fucking sense but to me. So I'm glad they have equal brain-dead people playing these games. But I kind of like the fact that they're like, yeah, we have one dumbass here playing the game wrong. Oh boy. Oh god, what is it gonna be? I don't know, I used to install a bunch of mods. I don't know what the fuck Alex is gonna be. Oh.
Dr. Freeman, I presume. You better hurry. The Combine can be slow to wake, but once they're up, you're gonna get in their way. Dr. Kleiner said you'd be coming this way. I don't think it occurred to him that you might not have a map.
Wow, okay,
Alex,
Nailing Alex's design was a big challenge. We wanted the player to both respect and care for her. Saving Eli was a key player goal midway through the game, and we knew that getting players to care about that goal would be easier if they also cared about Alex and her relationship with her father. We intentionally designed, wrote dialogue, and cast a voice actor for Alex to be savvy, capable, and relatable within the Combine-controlled world, while also making her attractive and charismatic. We aim to avoid the objectification, exaggeration, and hypersexuality that many games of the 2000s featured, as we felt that would undermine our goals for her character.
Right.
Interactive storytelling. When we started on Half-Life 2, storytelling in games was generally either high fidelity and linear, or low fidelity and interactive. New players had seen high-quality storytelling in games, but they'd never been placed right in the middle of it, able to watch it unfold around them, interact with it, and examine any part closely. While that goal excited us, we didn't yet know how it would work or what kind of technology we'd need to make it happen. We had built a variety of storytelling technology in Half-Life 1, but it was mostly presented in front of the player and lacked the interactivity and fidelity we were aiming for. So Kleiner's Lab became the section of the game we used as a testbed to figure out how our interactive storytelling would actually function.
Okay. Apparently I missed a note in the elevator, by the way.
NPCs on elevators. We often spend a significant amount of time solving problems that players might not even notice. Many of these are subtle design challenges, while others stem from multiple systems interacting with each other. For example, getting non-player characters to ride in elevators posed a complex problem because it involved various systems, NPC AI decision-making, navigation planning, and movement simulation, to name a few.
Wow.
Additionally, the elevator itself had its own simulation requirements.
Well, how ironic.
To NPCs. One of the more subtle challenges came from the fact that we simulate NPCs at a slower rate than we simulate elevators.
I hate that in video
This
games.
meant that NPCs on a descending elevator would simulate.
Oh, I thought they were talking
to
about
make sure
movement
they were
speed.
properly standing
Like
on
an
the
escort
elevator.
mission, you gotta like
And
follow
then
somebody
the
and you're
elevator would
faster or
simulate a
slower.
few times, each time moving further down the elevator shaft, subtly leaving the NPC behind.
Oh.
Shortly after that, the NPC would simulate a second time and pop itself down.
Every
on the
Bethesda
elevator
game
floor
ever.
Once again. You can imagine that it was hard to take Alex seriously.
Funny, you showing up on this day in particular.
Wow. All right. Oh boy, this is gonna be a mess, isn't it?
Kleiner's Lab. Kleiner's Lab was the first piece of storytelling we worked on, and the one that took the longest to figure out. In addition to its role in launching the player into the game,
Mark
it
Laidlaw, my main
eventually became
man.
a unifying vision for the development team in terms of storytelling. As we began building our characters and narrative delivery around the player,
I don't wanna
many
see it.
questions arose,
Don't wanna see
all
it.
of which
Not
felt
yet.
like major risks for the game. Would players be able to extract the important information from the scene? Could we get them to care about these characters? How would we support players with varying levels of investment in
I
the
love that
story?
stance.
How costly would it be to produce a scene like this?
Hmm.
And how many more would we need? These and many more were questions we couldn't answer until we built enough of the scene and tested it with a lot of playtesting.
So who doesn't care about Mr. Bean?
Frustratingly, unlike many other problems we face, these weren't questions we could confidently answer until we had done significant work. We can often test gameplay ideas with low-fidelity prototypes, but if a player isn't invested in our storytelling when the characters are just gray blocks, how confident can we be that they'll care once the characters are fully realized?
Apparently says it Kleiner's Lab awkwardly.
Choreography. The system we built and iterated on to deliver Half-Life 2's storytelling was internally called Choreo, short for choreography.
Choreo?
Early on, we found it useful to imagine we were writing a play where one of the actors didn't know the script.
Huh.
We needed a system that could control all the other actors, moving them around the stage, delivering their performances and speaking their lines.
Right.
To handle this, the other actors would need to seamlessly mix our directorial commands with dynamic responses to the player's position and behavior. Timing was clearly going to be a major challenge, as any part of the scene might
He's doing
need
a
to
Joe
lengthen,
Swanson
contract, or
impersonation.
even pause, depending on what the player was doing.
you know, I appreciate this game's sort of like environmental like character design where people are like walking around, but it's very Half-Life 2-y. You know exactly when it's Half-Life 2 when people move like this. Move hands up. Gordon, like it always looks very Half-Life 2-y. Like it doesn't ever seem seamless. They don't talk like Power Rangers characters, but it's very choreographed. Anyway, before we do this,
FacePoser. The primary tool we built to power the choreo system was called FacePoser.
Facebook. Is that the shit they used in Gary's mod?
Animators to lay out the entire structure of our scenes along a timeline.
Mm-hmm.
The timeline contained a series of choreo commands for the actors, along with all the necessary information for them to perform those commands. By layering these commands on the timeline, animators could easily describe how an actor might need to face one thing while talking towards another and walk to a different location, all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
The timeline wasn't a fixed linear sequence. Actors would follow their commands, but they had to respond dynamically to the world around them. An actor might take longer to move to a location if the player is in the way, or they might need to wait to deliver a line because another actor has been delayed by the player. FacePoser allowed us to rapidly iterate on scenes, trying different layouts, dialogue deliveries, and timings. This ability to quickly experiment and adjust proved critical in finding the right performances to achieve our character and narrative goals.
Come on, Gordon.
Alright, you got it. Here we go. What's inside here?
Choreo commands. This debug visualization shows the two most common choreo commands actors receive throughout a scene.
That's how that works.
Internally known as look-ats and move-tos. Actors are given targets to look at, sometimes more than one at a time.
Well, if you know what to do this, but Barney.
On the one that makes the most sense given their current state. At the same time, they might be receiving move-to commands, which tell them to move to a location and face a specific direction or object.
Wow, it's complex.
Even these seemingly simple commands involved a lot of complexity. A scene might require an actor to talk while typing on a keyboard, all while looking at an object the player is holding. Since we couldn't predict where the player
are your
would be during
fingers?
Playback, authoring scenes like this required us to break each element of the scene into separate pieces and layers. These could then be reassembled as needed during playback, based on the player's actions and interrupted if necessary.
Wow, I had no idea about this. Like, this is so new to me. Oh yeah, that was Barney, I totally forgot! Shit!
Delivery. It took a lot of iteration and playtesting to strike the right balance of information and emotional connection in our major choreo scenes. Each scene had a lot of information we needed to convey to the player, but we couldn't just have characters spouting exposition. Players would start thinking of them more as signposts than as people. We needed to take
Looks like a fucking meme house
characters
episode right
interact
here.
with each other, allowing the player to observe the relationships. At the same time, we had to expand upon
Baldness
giving
enhance.
the player a sense of everything that had happened while they were gone. All this had to be done carefully without taking too long. We wanted the game to work for players who were less invested in the narrative. Animation became a powerful tool in communicating the emotional connections between characters, often conveying the depth of a moment quick.
Lab interactivity. In our choreo scenes, we have the player trapped for a bit, allowing us to focus on the characters and narrative. To accommodate different players, some deeply invested in the story, others unable to stand still for more than a second, we felt like we needed a constant stream of interesting details on screen. We scattered narrative elements throughout the environment, ensuring some were interactive, essentially toys for the player to tinker with. In some cases, we embedded further storytelling into these, like the cactus mini-teleporter hinting at the upcoming teleporter failure. It was a delicate balance. Too much visual interest could distract players from the core of the scene. Ultimately, Kleiner's lab played it safe with interactivity, as it was the first major choreo scene. Later, in Eli's lab, we explored it more deeply, ensuring the characters themselves paid attention to what the players were tinkering with.
You know, I always I praise Valve's
The longer you delay, the greater the danger to us all.
Right. I always praise Half-Life 2's like you know, physics and attention to detail, but there's also like glaring major fucking faults in this game that I never understood how they can overlook. Why is it that Lamar is bloody as a head crab when Lamar has been debeaked and does not eat flesh? It is like, I know I shouldn't really be thinking about it too deep because it could be melon juice, but I'm like, why? And how the fuck is it that the machine gun in this, the SMG, has a grenade launcher function when it completely lacks a grenade launcher tube? Are you implying that the, like, grenade is coming out of the second barrel underneath? What the fuck? I'm not gonna go into detail about the shotgun either. How a Spas 12 is a double-barreled shotgun, but whatever. It's just like weird shit. My biggest thing, this sounds so stupid, but back in the day, I was so annoyed with this that I had to download a mod for it. This is how stupid this is. I hated that the zombies in this game has white shirts, when clearly all the citizens in City 17 has blue shirts. Right? So I was like, fix it.
Lab interactivity. In our choreo scenes, we have the player
Beta leftover,
allowing us to focus on the characters and narrative. To accommodate different players, some deeply invested in the story.
Alright, let's see what else we got.
Voice actors. To create more responsive and multi-dimensional characters in Half-Life 2,
fucking suit.
We needed to evolve our approach to working with voice actors. While running through a script with a modicum of
Silvercrest power armor
for much of the NPC dialogue for Half-Life 1, for Half-Life 2, we decided to give the actors more of an opportunity to be involved in helping to define the characters and bring them to life. We provided much more story context to the actors, showing them the game world, the environments their characters inhabited, and the other characters they interacted with. We sought actors who could take all that information and synthesize it into their performances to elevate their characters beyond what we had imagined. We held multiple sessions with the main actors, allowing them to digest and build upon their characters over time. For scenes where characters are interacting with each other, we'd often cue an actor with performances from other actors in the scene to create a better sense of connection and flow.
That's smart too.
Though we'd arrive at the studio with a script and a plan for the recording session, we made sure that the actors felt empowered and had the space to bring their own ideas to the character and performances. Having animators attend the voiceover sessions also proved critical, as they were responsible for stitching the characters' dialogue together with physical actions and expressions to form the resulting choreo scene. Often, animators found that their plans for how a scene would play out evolved quite a bit after working with the voice actor.
I'll say this, I have done voice work, and I'm not a professional voice actor, clearly, but here's the thing, just because I can throw voices, I can do, you know, Skeletor, and I can do a creepy voice, shit like that, doesn't mean shit when you're in an environment where you have to record things on a script. I'm gonna tell you something, it is a complete different thing actually doing it, and when you're doing like 30 takes of the same lines, and you're given a different performance each time, and you also have a voice coach telling you like what should you do for this scene, I'm just gonna tell you what it is. So this is like ground shaking news. It has nothing to do with this stream, and you know, if you're watching this just for the pure commentary and you're like, I don't give a fuck about this, you know, feel free to skip this little anecdotal part. But as you may or may not know, I am indeed in a Zurl cartoon called Monkey Wrench, playing a character. When I first did my voice lines for this, I read the entire script in a faux Skeletor voice. I did every single thing in the script, multiple takes. I get feedback from Zurl saying, yeah, we had a specific voice in mind. So I spent a whole day being like, oh, fuck. And then we got into a call with a voice coach and everything, and the actual performance, you'll see, is quite different. But, yeah, I'm not sure when that'll be up, but I do indeed play a character in it, so that was funny that I wasted it. Maybe I'll show you the line someday, beyond that. I don't know. How do I skip this part? It's over.
Writing. In the Half-Life 1 era, player goals in FPS games were still largely about fighting and defeating an obviously evil enemy. It was hard to get players to care about characters when they were as low fidelity as they were in Half-Life 1.
Holy fuck, I'm fast.
Improvements in character fidelity for Half-Life 2.
It's because of the commentary.
We wanted to take a shot at making characters the driving force of the narrative. Our goal was for the player's motivations to align with those of our characters, for the player to care about these people, their hopes and fears, and to want them to succeed.
Huh.
With this in mind, we were able to assemble our approach to character and dialogue. We would create a set of characters who liked and cared about each other, hoping that the player would feel the same. These characters would interact in a way that felt inclusive, like a group of old friends who see the player as one of them, just someone who's been away for a while. If the characters demonstrated realistic emotional connections,
what the fuck?
We believed we could build an emotional connection with the player as well.
Cat Jam.
Archetypes.
I remember seeing just the textures for this, thinking this is as good as graphics is ever gonna get.
2 through our characters. Our idea was to design individuals who felt like representations of Half-Life 1's archetypes, so that players might find them familiar, almost as though they'd met them in Half-Life 1 at some point that they couldn't quite remember. We based Dr. Kleiner on the scientist model we felt was the most iconic, and his personality was largely shaped by Hal Robbins, whose voice and
Never seen this, by
performances
the way.
had defined the Half-Life 1 scientists. One day, when we were in the thick of trying to figure out this character, Dr. Kleiner's face came into focus as we happened to share an elevator with an accountant from an office on another floor of our building.
What?
And looking at him, it was clear that this is Dr. Kleiner's face. Luckily, he was receptive when we asked if we could photograph him for a video game character.
Hey, you look like a bald George Costanza. Would you like to play a video game character, or rather, could we just photograph you in an elevator? What the fuck? All right. Wow. All right.
Tone. Setting the right tone for our characters and their dialogue was critical.
I watched the documentary, yes.
We aimed for a respectful, almost pleasant style of interaction with the player, while avoiding anything that felt too subservient.
Cursed
This
image.
balance was especially tricky with Alex, who needed to support the player without compromising the strength of her character, something we felt was crucial for players to respect her. Her relationship with Eli was a core driver of the player's motivations, so it was important that players liked her and wanted to help her. We also wanted to contrast the warmth and camaraderie between the player's allies against the hostilities of Breen and the Combine, inspiring a sense of righteous indignation in the players for the battles ahead.
I'll say this because, you know, a lot of people point out that, you know, in Metal Gear Solid 5, Big Boss doesn't talk much, and it was like, I know some people say that was because Keith Sutherland, like, charged by the second or per word, and he was too expensive. But I think Kojima decided to do that because they wanted the player to feel more like Big Boss, right? But they kind of half compromise on that. And I wish he just talked fully, like the previous games. But in this game, I think, I don't know if they ever bring this up, but I feel like you are Gordon Freeman, because in a way, what I always loved about Half-Life is the fact you are an average nobody. I know you're like a scientist, you're a smart guy, but I feel like you're surviving this shit world, right? And it's really you in that suit, you know what I mean? And the characters around you feels like they're talking to you, not a character, you know? I know that sounds very dorky and all that shit, but I think in Half-Life 1, you're like showing up for the first day of work, and then it goes to shit. And that's why I always like the opposing force in Blue Shift too. Like, I don't want to necessarily play the hero, I just want to play like the average Joe that coincidentally survives the ordeal, you know. I know that sounds really stupid, but yeah. Look at the picture. Whoever did this did a bad job. They color graded it wrong. It stands out too much.
Animation.
Alright, listen. Here's the deal with this. This is really interesting for me to listen to, but I'm not sure it necessarily makes a really fun stream to watch. Because I'm just listening to this, and I have like nothing to say except just absorbing information. So what I might do is I might just call it here after the lab, and just move on to something else, and just do this on my own. It is really interesting for me, but here's what I would say. I think it's better that you guys check out this game for free on Steam, and listen to yourself, because it's almost like I'm reading a book, except I'm absorbing the words and you're watching me read a book, you know what I mean? I mean, I'll play a little bit more, but I'm worried that I have nothing to say. I'm just enjoying this, you know what I mean?
Character reactions. Figuring out what characters should react to and how was an ongoing challenge. At the core, we always want the game to respond to player input. However, any response from the game can be seen as a reward by the player. So, what characters react to and what they ignore teaches the player about the kind of input the game expects. As a result, we made sure to respond to things we wanted more of, like players tinkering with devices in the lab, and ignored behaviors we wanted less of, like players repeatedly slapping Kleiner in the face with a box over and over again. Seriously, we watched a playtester do it for 5 minutes straight.
What the fuck? Why?
Animation. Constructing believable human motion for our characters out of many discrete layers of animation required a lot of technological iteration. Even
Joel,
simple
you of all
actions like
people.
trying to look at something or walking
I
to
hope
a
this is all the
location
same
became more
playtester.
complex when combined with the need to dynamically respond to the player and the requirements of choreo commands. For example, turning to look at something had to be fully composed, allowing a character to use any combination of its eyes, head, shoulders, upper torso, or full body to face a target. In Half-Life 1, human characters had their bodies separated into upper and lower halves, allowing them to walk in one direction while facing another. However, this approach was too abstract for Half-Life 2's characters. Instead, our animators created walking animations in all 8 directions of the compass, which could then be smoothly blended together at runtime.
Okay.
Monitors. We use monitors a lot for storytelling in Half-Life 2 in the episodes. So much so that we even make fun of ourselves for it.
Oh?
The problem is they're just too damn useful. They're fantastic for expanding the world by showing events happening elsewhere. And they provide
Eli?
an easy way to have characters talk without
The fuck are you
needing to
wearing? What is
explain how
that?
they all got to the player's location.
Eli?
Anyone who's ever written any
Are
kind
you
of
dressed like a
story,
Zoomer?
especially one with an ensemble cast, understands the unique frustration of trying to create natural reasons for all of your characters to come together in the same place.
Fuck is that?
In this case, we were really happy with how the
Mossman.
monitor allowed Alex to teleport away and then quickly appear in Eli's lab, making everything feel real and connected.
Oh. Yeah, they do a lot of that, but
Alex's kiss. It's a small moment, but Alex's kiss on Eli's cheek was important. Eventually, we're going to ask the player to save Eli, and we want them to care about him. To build that emotional connection, we needed to show the warmth and affection between Alex and Eli. We didn't want to oversell it with dialogue or make it too big of an event. It had to feel genuine, not performative. And we were able to iterate on the subtleties of this moment until it struck just the right note.
I remember in, I think it's episode 1 where you get pulled out of the wreckage of the Citadel and Alex hugs you. And it's one of the very few times that, like, the game stops.
That's it.
You know, so they put a lot of emphasis on, like, character development and shit, you know.
Scene interactivity. At certain points in our choreo scenes, we require the player to
That's it, you heard you.
beyond simply giving them something to do and keeping them engaged.
Somebody in chat said that a woman touches you.
Purposes. First, they allow the player to catch up, even if they've been distracted by something else in the environment. The scene could safely pause.
I like to imagine that, you know, if that shit was in VR, you guys chat would, like, you don't understand human, like, relations. So the first thing that you would do when, like, Alex approaches you, you get thrown onto the floor by the grace of God, and you immediately start sniffing feet.
Until the player completed the task, ensuring they were back and paying attention.
I'm glad AI technology hasn't got to the point where the characters actually realize what they're doing.
Which was useful for
What are you
framing the scene
doing?
and making sure they saw something important. In some cases, we got double value out of these moments by using them to
I'm
train the
Sneef.
player. Here, they're learning to interact with plugs and sockets, a skill they'll need for puzzles later in the game.
That's it. Excellent. You gonna let Gordon throw the switch?
All right, here we go.
Go right ahead.
This is very Half-Life 1-y, the more I think about it.
Very good. Final sequence. Commencing now. I can't look.
I love how he's the scientist. Oh shit, Mr. Bean! Well, it is a Half-Life game, yeah, but look.
Well, did it work?
See for yourself.
Hey, Doc.
Thank. My relief is
Beamed.
palpable.
Fantastic work, Izzy.
Well, I can't take all the credit. Dr. Freeman proved an able assistant.
Wow.
Go ahead and bring Gordon through now.
Right you are. Speak to you again in a few moments.
Good job, Gordon. Throwing that switch and all. I can see your MIT education really pays for itself.
I love that line, it's so funny.
Your turn.
Gee, thanks. Gordon, as soon as you're in position, we'll send you to Eli's. And not a moment too soon.
What? Why is this playing? No. Why?
Initialize it.
Why? Why?
Barney, if you'd be so kind. Good luck out there, Gordon.
Where am I being sent? Where am I being sent?
Bon voyage, and best of luck in your future endeavors. Final sequence. The hell? What is it? It's your freaking headhumper.
Uh-oh. Now we're good. Anime jail. What the fuck? What the hell? What? What is that on his head?
What's the meaning of this? Who are you? How did you get in?
A goblin? I look like a goblin? It was an afro. Oh.
I'm all but certain it was Gordon Freeman.
The only time we see this guy, by the way. I wish it was in the game, but whatever.
He didn't come through.
Then where is he?
Behind you. Shut it,
Ah!
shut it down.
Gordon, you must get out of here.
All right. Should have been the eel from Mario 64. Okay. The music has been replaced with Caramel Dansen. All right. Fuck, I'm fast as hell, man. Okay. Is it from the Citadel? It's coming from the tower? What the fuck?
Phonium extraction. Another critical tool we built in the Face Poser was the phonium editor. It processed the voice actors' dialogue lines and extracted
It's on full alert!
to generate basic lip sync animations for our characters. For the hero characters, our animators use this as a starting point to create high-quality.
This is from the Monkey Mondays. I don't remember this bit. What the fuck?
Operating full facial animation. However, in a dynamic choreo scene, the animators wouldn't know exactly what the rest of the actor's body would be doing. This meant it required careful layering of choreo commands and timings in Face Poser.
Wow.
Still maintaining the actor's ability to dynamically respond to the player.
By the way, this is a Swedish song. I mean, I know most people know that, but
At the time of Half-Life 2's release, most first-person shooters gave the player a gun or a melee weapon right off the bat.
Melee.
But we opted to start them empty-handed. Without a weapon, it was easier to train the player on the more novel ways they're able to interact with the world and introduce them to our story. We wanted the player to transition from fugitive to the aggressor, and arming them at the right time created that moment naturally. By the time they finally get a weapon, they're done running away. They say sometimes the best way to win is to walk away, but we all know that's not true. The best way to win is to run towards something while shooting at it.
Dynamic mixing. During gameplay, many sounds are playing at the same time, but some are naturally more important than others, and we need to set the volumes of the sounds relative to each other to ensure that the important ones stand out. In a movie, this sound mixing is done as a post-process, but in a game, it happens real-time, responding to the player's actions, so we can't predict ahead of time which sounds will play simultaneously.
Meanwhile, Caramel Dansen is
Sounds
playing in
are
the
grouped into
background.
Types and tagged with priorities. Then during gameplay, the audio system monitors all the active sounds and lowers the volume of sounds in a group if a higher priority sound is playing.
Is it a limiter?
And this mixing is adjustable. If the gunshots need to be loud in one scene, we can make them higher priority there. If a specific line of dialogue needs to be heard clearly, it can then force all the other sounds to drop in volume.
I feel like every single game needs this. Holy shit.
It's a subtle but very critical system, and it just prevents the soundscape from...
Yeah, that
becoming too
RoboCop game we played needed this game like water.
Bullet audio. If there's one thing we're sure of,
I always
it's
liked
that
this about this
A lot
game.
of bullets will fly past a player throughout the game. So we spent a bunch of time trying to perfect the audio treatment for it. Unfortunately, bullets in the game are essentially instantaneous, so we can't just attach a sound to them and rely on the movement for positioning. So after some experimentation, we landed on this solution. By figuring out the closest point on the bullet's trajectory to the player's ear, we calculate the exact time and position the bullet would conceptually pass them. We then play 2 different sounds at that point to fake a Doppler effect, one for the bullet's approach and one for its departure. And we delay the departure sound based on the calculated time the bullet passed by.
I think I can get in. Oh, there we go. I mean, I like that kind of detail, man.
Audio caching. Another problem we
Oh,
ran
no
into
subtitles for
was
this
the
one.
amount of audio in the game. With all the gameplay sounds, music, and dialogue, we had too much audio to be able to store it all in memory. Memory was at a premium in 2003. But as you can imagine, we need to be able to play sounds immediately, especially if they're gameplay related. So we built an audio cache, which stored only the first 125 milliseconds of every audio file and kept that in memory. That 125 millisecond time was our best guess for how long it would take us to be able to stream an audio file in from disk.
Okay.
Then, whenever a sound was played in-game, we'd play the start of it from our audio cache while simultaneously kicking off a load of the full audio file from disk. By the time our cache start ended, we'd have the file loaded and could continue playing the rest of the sound. There were some other minor features, like keeping recent sounds fully in memory so that high traffic ones didn't need to be loaded constantly. In today's engines, all kinds of assets, beyond just sounds, typically use the same kind of strategy.
Huh. I feel like a lot of the attention to detail here is used now, and I'm not saying that this came indirectly from this kind of development, but at the same time, as smart as this is, I guarantee a lot of the games you play nowadays use similar groundbreaking shit that isn't overtly obvious to the player, just from a developmental standpoint, you know. So I'm not saying this is some sort of holy grail of video gaming. It is just smart design anyway, because it ran so good.
Physics sound. Getting physics to feel right for the player meant that the sounds produced by physics had to sound right too. As humans, we're all used to how objects and materials sound during various interactions, even if it's not something we actively notice.
Oh, I think I'm invincible.
While we knew we couldn't account for everything, we wanted to focus on the details that contributed most to making our physics sound realistic. We started with per-object sounds for collisions and impacts. This allowed an object like a wooden crate to have custom sounds when it collided with other objects or classes of objects. Next, we began dynamically
I'm gonna tell you something
modifying
dirty
these
after this,
sounds
by the
based
way.
on the characteristics of the physical event, such as the masses involved and the force of the collision. This worked great for collisions, but didn't hold up in other interactions like objects scraping against each other. In reality, a wooden crate makes a different sound when it scrapes against a wall versus when it's thrown against that same wall. Let me tell you, nobody has done more research on the nuances of a wooden crate's physical properties than us. To get what we wanted out of these interactions, we implemented per-material collision sounds, metal against wood, metal against metal, and so on. These sounds were also dynamically modified based on details, like material hardness or type of metal. Getting this system to sound right required countless small tweaks, which we could only identify once it was running. We also experimented with custom sounds for rolling objects, but ultimately cut the feature because we weren't happy with the results.
So, I have used Half-Life 2's material sound effects, because there's a way, because all the sound effects is stored in a GFC file, I believe. You can open this up with an editor, and I have many times used something specific for a video edit or something like that, of just, like a metal slide or a sound of a fabric or something like that. DCF, whatever it was called. And I've just ripped the sounds out. This is an excellent library of sounds for any animator or like, you know, video game creator or whatever. You steal it from Half-Life 2. I don't know if it's like, you know, legal to do that. But it is like the best amount of sounds of a library you can find. It's really awesome, actually. So when they say that they worked extensively on like the different nuances of like this and that, I totally understand what they're saying, because there's a ton of sound effects.
Automating DSP. All the sounds a player hears are processed through our digital signal processing system, or DSP. And this just refers to how audio is altered to reflect the environment the player is in. For example, the same sound will differ when heard in a parking garage,
a
small room, outdoors. In Half-Life 1, we manually placed invisible nodes throughout the world to define these DSP settings for each space. For Half-Life 2, we knew that manual placement was just going to be way too time-consuming, especially since we wanted a larger game, and we still only had one audio person on the team. So we built a system that automatically determines the DSP settings around the player in real time. It does this by analyzing the space around the player, assessing the volume they're within. It examines the materials that make up the environment, basically. And then the system matches that space to one of the 25 hand-authored basic DSP types. We adjust some parameters, and we create the fully detailed DSP that modifies the sounds the player hears.
I feel this is a time of video games just on the cusp of making it really big. I know Half-Life 2 was developed by a lot of people, but if you go back to watching a Super Nintendo game, it's credits, it's like, you know, it's like 10 guys, you know. And this is just about when it started getting really big. Like, if you check the credits of a video game now, it's like fucking like 40 minutes of shit, you know. You know, you have this and that. But I feel like this was still when video game development was kind of nerdy, made by dudes with pimples, long hair, and glasses, you know what I mean? Like, and those guys, one individual person would like get a fuck ton of shit done. I'm not saying like, oh, this is when video games had big passion, but I felt like video games were still kind of a nerdy thing. Now they're a giant corporate fucking bulldozer, you know what I mean? Like the John Romero types, yeah. I'm not saying like video game nowadays are like bad or nothing like that, but I think during this specific time period, I'm gonna make a stupid comparison. This is still when E3 had booth babes. Okay, I know that's like a, what do you mean with that? And booth babes, if you don't know, was basically like bikini women at video game shows. So gamers would be like, whoa, dude, boob. It's fucking hell. It's just total nerds. Okay. My goodness. Was that also called Root Canal? Not Canal.
Metro Cop scene. This is another scene designed to make it clear that the Metro Cops are the bad guys, except this time the player has a weapon and can finally do something about it. That something comes out of the barrel of a gun. We knew we needed the player to feel righteous, and this moment was part of creating that. The Metro Cops are still human, unlike the rest of the Combine in the game, so we felt like we had to go the extra mile in making sure the player's actions felt like justice and not just wrath.
They'll be looking for you now.
Okay. Why was he waiting? Okay, now we can start gaming.
Staircase.
Oh,
there
look
are
at this.
situations throughout the game that stem from simple and quite straightforward design goals, and this staircase features two of them.
He was listening to the
first was to
commentary.
frame the
Oh.
Citadel as it awakened, showing the player they stirred up the hive. The second was to showcase our ragdoll system. While it's standard now, in 2004 it was still a novelty to see bodies tumble
right.
realistically.
That's right.
And stairs provided a perfect stage to make that happen.
I remember there was a selling point of video games. This is how stupid I was as a kid. But literally, if a game had ragdoll, I would buy it because it felt like real life. I know that's like a big fucking novelty, or like that seemed like a novelty, but back then it was like, holy shit, when you shoot somebody, their body actually, it doesn't just GTA shit, you know? And that's when I remember in like, not San Andreas, going from San Andreas to GTA 4, I'm like, holy shit. In fact, I would say this, GTA 4 might be, was it 16 years old now? My goodness. But to this day, I think GTA 4's physics is some of the best when it comes to ragdoll and just like small attention to details you don't notice. But yeah, I remember back then, mid-2000s gaming, like, holy shit, they move.
City 17 awakens. The early train station section was designed to make the city feel indifferent toward the player, as if Gordon is just another nameless, faceless citizen, ripe for subjugation. But during the tenement raid and rooftop chase, the city identifies the player as an anomaly and starts to stir. Now, with the player as the aggressor, the city fully turns its attention on them. The Overwatch PA system, first heard during the raid, played a key role in delivering this message. If players listen closely, there's a lot of information about the city's awareness.
Yeah, hit all three.
Even when players didn't pay attention, though, the audio treatment still conveyed the emotional message we were aiming for.
Explosive barrels. Here, we introduce explosive barrels, a staple of first-person shooters, but with a new twist. The second pistol shot sets the barrel on fire, starting a timed detonation. A third shot will detonate the barrel immediately. This way, players could either delay the explosion or trigger it right away, depending on the situation. Players may want to feed an explosive barrel to a barnacle and then shoot it twice as a handy way to safely dispatch a cluster of them. The delayed explosion also made for more interesting chain reactions between multiple barrels. Exploding barrels were a fan favorite in the series, but also were internally favored by level designers who often felt like the game could never have enough.
Somebody asked, did I play Half-Life Alyx? I streamed all of it. The only problem with that stream is I didn't have monitoring on my microphone, so most of the time, like, I make a conscious effort because I have my own microphone in my headphones when I talk, so I know if I'm talking over here or if I'm talking real close, right? The problem is, during that stream, because I had no idea, like, I did not go to the gym or do nothing like I do nowadays, right? And I remember, like, crouching and being out of breath because I had a giant microwave on my head. So most of the commentary in that game is like this. Hey guys, hey, you're gonna say engage. Like, it's fucking miserable to listen to. I had to try to use, like, post-processing on it, but I couldn't get rid of all of it. But, you know, thanks for suffering with me during that.
Scanners. Scanners presented a tricky game design challenge. While we liked how their dystopian presence helped convey the Combine occupation as an oppressive surveillance state, we didn't actually want them to shoot at the player. We found that aiming into the sky to hit a small mobile enemy with a constant height advantage was something we couldn't make fun. Since we loved their role in the story, we decided that in combat, scanners would serve primarily as eyes, alerting nearby enemies to the player's presence, a feature we reinforced with sound effects from the soldiers. Beyond that, they'd only be able to harass the player with bright lights and occasionally dive bomb after taking enough damage.
Overwatch.
I kind of forgot about the
During
Squidward sound effect now.
We generated the Overwatch voice using a free text-to-speech tool, but as we neared shipping, we realized we didn't actually have the rights to use it, so we held auditions with voice actors to find someone who could match the qualities we liked in the generated lines.
Wow.
It didn't take long before we found Ellen McLean, whose delivery was exactly what we were looking for. In her sessions, we played the generated lines for her to mimic, though in her own style. She was a bit sarcastic at first, given that she was being asked to replicate such a robotic delivery, but years later when she returned for her iconic role as GLaDOS in Portal, she'd found a way to creatively integrate that tone into her performance.
Really?
Pistol design. The standard pistol is the workhorse of the game, functioning not only as the first range weapon you learn to use, but also as a method to interact with physics and destructible objects at a safe distance for the entirety of the game. To help make it feel more responsive and fun to use, the pistol employs a refire mechanic that's unique to it in the game. The gun will fire as fast as the player can click their input button, meaning that they feel an instant response to their input.
Definitely scripted that to make it sure that they fall out. Okay, guys, I'd love to play more of this. But I think what I'm gonna do at this point is I'm going to go to the very start of it and listen to the very beginning where I get to hear my sweet Gabe, my main man, you know.
Shatter glass. When designing early levels where there are fewer mechanics in the player's toolkit, we found that it's just as engaging to spotlight new technical features instead, as we did here with breakable glass. For the shattering effect, glass was divided into a grid of small squares, allowing us to track which were intact or broken, and to blow out larger sections once enough squares were no longer connected. Each square was rendered with a unique texture based on the status of its neighboring squares, creating the sharp, jagged edges between broken and intact glass. While breaking glass is now commonplace in games, it was something we hadn't seen much back when we were making Half-Life 2, and we're incredibly happy with the level of fidelity and dynamicism it brought to the game.
I still think that this technology from 2004, no joke, is better than some fucking glass physics in video games. Like, most of them just go pump pump break, you know. But these small attention to detail. I remember watching the E3 footage. I'm like, holy shit, the glass breaks individually? I honestly feel that the only developer nowadays that still gives a fuck about these things is Rockstar. Like, when GTA 6 comes out, I can't wait to see these little, like, details that most people don't really will see, but just this, like, stuff in it, you know. No, not anymore, they don't. Well, Red Dead Redemption, too. I had a lot of that shit, you know. Rockstar doesn't care, Rockstar doesn't care. I think Red Dead Redemption 2 had great attention to detail. It's like stuff. Red Dead Redemption was bad. Okay.
Helicopter Peekaboo.
Peekaboo.
Combine attack helicopter as central antagonist was something we wanted to develop throughout the entire chapter. The relentless chopper became a character in its own right. Here, if you listen and look overhead, you can hear its engine and see it flying along the train tracks and into the distance. This first glimpse is a small piece of foreshadowing, with its presence becoming more pronounced over time, until eventually you're squaring off against it.
There with that, okay.
Iterative passes. Some chapters of the game, such as the on-foot sections of the canals in Ravenholm, were developed in multiple passes by different cabals. We found that handing off maps in this way led to greater variety in the experience, and a higher density of interesting moments, as each cabal added their unique touches to the maps. In the on-foot portion of the canals, the first pass established the art direction and the player path, along with the broad strokes of the experience and some major beats. But the team-wide alpha playtest identified insufficient tension and a somewhat monotonous experience here. In our second pass, we returned to the map solely focused on creating that tension and greatly increased the density of moment-to-moment scenarios.
Unrelated, guys, but speaking of Half-Life 2, well, this is more relevant than ever. The original 2004 release of this game, when it came out, had a weird physics thing going on it, and I'm sure you've seen some speedrunners do this on the old release of this game, but you could break a crate, take a little piece of thing, and just like spam and fly in the game. It's like an extreme game-breaking glitch. So I think today when people speedrun this game, there's an old category for the old release.
Water shader. The most complex shader we made for the game was the water shader, which made full use of the newly available programmable graphics cards. When water was present, the scene was rendered 3 times. First, the underwater world for reflection.
Still looks good in my
second,
opinion.
a reflected view, and third, the parts of
Take a lot of this shit for granted, don't we, guys?
When rendering the water surface, we blended the refractive and reflective views, showing more reflection at glancing angles using the Fresnel equation. We also tracked the ground depth below the water's surface, making it more transparent and less refractive in shallow areas. Additionally, we had to create 2 alternate water rendering techniques for lower-end graphics cards. Mid-range cards display a lower detail reflection without refraction or transparency.
That's me! That was me!
While low-end cards only rendered a partially transparent surface.
That was me! Oh my god, I play that crap!
Interstitial scenes. As playtesting progressed, we often found areas where players lost track of their goal, which isn't uncommon in a game like Half-Life. To address this, we added smaller interstitial scenes to help guide players along their path and reinforce their objective. After finishing the bulk of development on our larger choreo scenes, like Kleiner's Lab, putting the smaller scenes together became relatively straightforward. We discovered that using characters in these moments worked much better than relying on passive storytelling, or even some sort of reminder you'd find baked into a pause menu.
Oh yes, yes. Thank you. By the way, a quick anecdotal thing. Rest in peace, Tony Todd, the voice actor for the Vortigaunt. You know, he played Kern, Worf's brother in Star Trek, Candyman, tons of voice acting work, including the Vortigaunt. You know, passed away this year. I was always like, holy shit, Tony Todd, when I listened to video games. Like, he's a very distinct voice, but yeah. That sucks. Old Jake Sisko and Deep Space Nine.
Boxcar Bill. This small scene originally featured 2 human characters, but later in development, we replaced one with a Vortigaunt. We wanted to show that Vortigaunts were coexisting with humans and resisting the Combine as well. We also introduced their ability to heal the player, although we didn't fully capitalize on that feature throughout the game.
The bucket?
Vortigaunts became a useful narrative tool for keeping dialogue brief, as their hive mind justified their full knowledge of the world and the player's goals. This meant they never had to ask questions, neatly sidestepping the challenge of writing dialogue for a silent protagonist.
Why did they never explain this? What was this added? What is these 2 holes? Reminds me of when it was Carmack or Romero asked on Twitter, and somebody asked, why does a cacodemon have a giant butthole? And Romero goes, I can't explain those holes. Butt 1 and Butt 2. One for poo, one for pee. Guys, I'd love to keep playing this. I think this is incredibly interesting, but I think this will do it for some of this stuff. I love fucking commentary notes in video games. I love playing episode 2, for example, and just listening to them talk. And I think most of the people here are enjoying just my kind of playthrough of listening to them. But ultimately, I don't have too much to say. And I think this is more of a personal sort of immersive experience where you get to sit down, have someone like tell you about the game that you love so much. So what I'm going to do here at the very beginning, I'm going to go back and play the very, very start. So we get to see Gabe Newell's commentary. I was enjoying this. This is really good. I'm glad I can shut the fuck up and let the game speak for me because, you know. Alright, well, disable the mod, Joey. Alright, I'm gonna just quickly do this so we can hear this in full. Give me a second here, I'm just gonna disable the mod, but, yeah, but I mean, this is a pathetic sort of, you know, look on, hang on, how do I see my subscribed things on Half-Life 2 here? Browse subscribed items. Okay, I'm just going to turn this off momentarily so we can get to enjoy Gabe Newell, you know. There we go. I was saying, yeah, you know, my love for this game cannot be, like, really put into a single anecdotal bullshit stream. But I will compensate with where my words lack my sincere appreciation of this game by showing a lot of Half-Life 2 content this month. I'm not going to do this today, but oh fuck, I forgot the enable commentary thing. But I will be doing Half-Life 2 Deathmatch. I'll be continuing the Map Labs pack, as well as playing some Half-Life 2 mods. One of them being... fuck, what is it called? Entropy, I believe. So you'll get a full playthrough of that as well. A lot of stuff here in November when it comes to Half-Life. Because, again, it is the 20-year anniversary of this, so... You know. I think at some point I can also... I unsubscribed, what the fuck?
Go fuck yourself!
I didn't see you get on.
Okay, maybe we'll see it anyway. Keep it. Yeah, well, the development commentary is not going to show up. I tried to disable them. It's not a mod. You got to go into the extras? Is that it? Hang on, let me see here. Let me see if I did this right. Options. It's not there. Let me just relaunch the game, honestly. That might just be it. That's the normal game. That was added for the anniversary. The commentary is on the train when it stops. Oh, okay, I see. You didn't relaunch? I think I did, but brain is on autopilot, you know. Hey. Okay, well, guys, here is all the mods I was installing. Now you can see them. So we got Lidl, we got Ass Crab, and Fart with Rebirth for Explosions. That didn't play, but alright. Mr. Beast. What else do we have here? Sims Plumbob. So, okay. Go fuck yourself and Carl CJ. So, okay, I'm just gonna disable all of this. Alright, there we go. Now we can enjoy it. Can you turn off the shoe sound finally? That's just what we did. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna ask an unironic question. Do you think that G-Man's intro here still looks good in terms of video game face animation? I think it does. It's a little up close, so you get a little bit of like really blurry textures, but the face itself looks good. I think Valve right now with Half-Life, after Alex, is going more for a cartoony vibe, and I think Half-Life 2 was more going for a brutal realism. And I kind of wish they would return to this.
Mr. Freeman, wake up and smell the ashes.
Okay. Would you say Half-Life 2 is one of the most atmospheric games of all time? I think so. This is one of those games you can smell. You know what I mean? There's something so... This is like rusty, industrial, you know, oily, just... Oh, man. Realism balloons budgets now. This game hits different when you're Eastern European. Okay. There we go.
Physics objects. It might be hard to remember it now, but back when Half-Life 2 came out, small objects in games, like these bits of trash, were usually static. As in, they didn't really move, or if they did, it was in a very simple way. If you were lucky, they might break apart into some sprites if you hit them. One of the goals for this initial train station section was to really make it clear to players that these kinds of things were properly physically...
I can no clip in here, guys. Don't worry about it.
They could be picked up, dropped, thrown, broken, moved by other forces.
I'll save it for last.
Here we're starting with just a small thing, showing that trash is being blown by the arrival of the train, or, more specifically, an invisible volume that's triggered by the player leaving the train.
It's safer here.
All right. I love that line. It's safer here.
Station. The beginning of a Half-Life game has a big job to do. We have to introduce players to a new world while teaching them how to interact with it. Players need to quickly grasp what's happening, who the key players are, what threats they face, and how they fit into it all. Above all else, it has to be as fun and interactive as possible. Nailing this takes a lot of iteration and playtesting, especially on the small moments that make up a bigger picture of the game. In this section, we'll highlight some key moments, game design problems, and a few playtests where things didn't quite go as planned.
Sorry, I always love bullying the Metro cops.
Sweeping Vortigaunt. Another key moment of storytelling, and another nod to the physics system. Here, we're showing how Vortigaunts fit into this new world, which is a big shift from their Half-Life 1 role as enemies.
Big shit.
Like so many moments in Train Station, the Sweeping Vortigaunt came from our constant hunt for ways to show characters interacting naturally with the physics system. Why just tell players Vortigaunts are friendly now, when you can show one casually sweeping the floor and knocking around some simulated objects? Nothing signals, hey, don't shoot me this time around, like someone willing to tidy up.
I like the idea of a player being able to shoot Vortigaunts in this. I know it's like friendly fire, but could you imagine playing this game and you're still like, you hate the Vortigaunts, so no matter how much they help you, still go, you know?
Welcome.
Goddamn alien!
Metro cop shoving citizens. We've only walked a few
Free man's mind. Is that it? Is that what it does? That? Okay, okay.
We're introducing the Metro Cop, an enemy that eventually we're going to ask players to kill, and giving you a glimpse of the world they're stepping into. It's a simple, clear moment that shows the relationships between the Metro Cops and citizens, and by extension, the player. At the same time, we decided to reinforce the existence of the core physics simulation, showing the way in which NPCs can casually interact with objects in the world. Seeing something like a suitcase knock into another and dislodge was pretty novel back then. These moments at the train station where we combined multiple goals were the most successful. They felt natural.
Is train station one word? I thought it was two.
Citizens. When it came time to design the human citizens of City 17 and the world outside the city, we chose to include a variety of races, ages,
Bill
and
Van
genders.
Buren.
This not only provided narrative context for the Combine's enslavement of all of humanity, but it was also important to us that anyone playing the game could see themselves represented in the Resistance, with everyone on Earth united against the Combine. While we found a number of candidates to use as reference in creating these citizens through our daily lives and connections, we ultimately resorted to advertising in the Seattle Times classifieds to reach the desired range of faces that we'd envisioned.
Yummy. Yummy. Yum.
Natural storytelling. To achieve our world building and storytelling goals throughout the train station, we needed a natural way to deliver dialogue without it feeling too gamey or requiring tutorials.
Gamey.
We noticed players often approached NPCs to get a closer look, So we turned that into an opportunity for the NPCs to acknowledge the player and deliver their lines. This kept interactions low-key, which was essential since the citizens aren't exactly too cheerful or lively. The simplicity of this approach also aligned with one of Half-Life's core storytelling goals, making the narrative responsive to the player's interest. Some players want to dig into every detail, while others just want to know what to do next. Giving players control over how much story they want to engage with, without it blocking progress, is a goal we always try to maintain in a Half-Life game. Plus, the less complicated a feature is to implement, the more of it we can include.
Well, we have about 2 more nodes left, and then we're going to check out the original node from Gabe Newell, and then I'm going to end this segment. This has been a lot of fun to do, and just check out from the developer standpoint, but, you know...
Storytelling. Creating a sense of immersion was a core principle in our approach to Half-Life 1's storytelling, and it led us to the self-imposed constraints of never, or at least very rarely, taking control away from the player and of keeping the player's avatar silent. These limitations made storytelling more challenging at times, but we felt it was important to stay with them for Half-Life 2. Our hope was that by maintaining these principles, we'd push ourselves to explore deeper, more interactive storytelling.
You know what I really appreciate about Half-Life in general? This game never does this thing where you are, I gotta activate the console thing. This game never pauses the game for you. It's very, very, very rare it ever does something like that. But, yeah, it's almost seamless, you know what I mean? It makes it more interactive, you know? Alright, let's see here.
Early tech planning. Shipping a game always teaches us a lot. We finally get to find out which choices we made were good ones, and which were ones we should do differently next time. So after Half-Life 1, when we sat down to start thinking about what kind of sequel we could build, we had all kinds of player feedback to digest. From it, we tried to build a master list of things that Half-Life 2 was going to focus on. We didn't try to design a specific player experience. Instead, we found it more useful to approach the question from a technological standpoint. Black Mesa's security guards and scientists had worked well. What could we do if we pushed it really, really hard on characters? We liked our interactive storytelling. What could we build that would allow us to do even more of it, and a greater variety? The exploration and interaction with the Black Mesa was compelling to players. Maybe a physics system would allow us to take that further. In all these areas, we tried to imagine the best version of it could look like years in the future, and back solve from that a set of technological steps that might get us there.
I just realized that, did they slightly modify the model and stuff for this Half-Life 1 area? Because I thought it was like a 1-1 recreation, because really? I guess they updated it slightly? But they still have these like BMP textures from like 96, which is cute as fuck. You know, this ladder, the same. You know, so I guess it's slightly different. But alright, let's see if we go back here, but you know. Whatever happened to BMP, I think it weighed too much. You know. Alright, last one, here we go.
Welcome to City.
I'm Gabe Newell, and welcome back to Half-Life 2. It's been a long 20 years since its release. In this anniversary update, we've tried to respond to as many of the community's requests as possible. And while this might not be the absolute #1 request from fans, I often hear how much people would like a commentary mode, so we're excited to finally make that happen. Not only was it a challenge to remember many of the details of Half-Life 2's development, but it's not easy to crack open decades-old computer code and wonder what the hell you were thinking way back then. Along with a dev commentary, we've cleaned up a bunch of old bugs and tried to leave things in better shape than we found them. And at least this time, we had the luxury of knowing how things turned out in the end. To listen to a commentary node, put your crosshair over the floating commentary symbol and press your use key. To stop a commentary node, put your crosshair over the rotating node and press the use key again. And please, let me know what you think. You can reach me at gaben@vargskelethor.com. Thanks, and have fun.
It went from Gaben into GABEN to
City 17.
Yeah.
It's safer here.
Ben. Okay. Okay, you know, I'll say this about Gabe. I know he's like, he's into collecting knives and working steel mills or whatever the fuck you do nowadays, but I can tell that he's still a developer that cares about what the fuck he does. Where he's like, hey, email me if you like my video game that we made. Like, I think that's adorable, you know? It's like, we made a game, I hope you find it fun. Like, that's fucking awesome, you know? I think a friend of mine way back in the day sent him an email, and it was like a meme email, like, hey, fucko, where's Half-Life 3? And he's like, responded back, I forgot what it was, but he basically said, like, in development. Like, it was like, short response. You know, but, yeah, man, I don't have much else to say except about we have a lot more Half-Life content coming in this month. But thank you for watching my listening experience of this. I know a lot of people thought this was kind of relaxing. It's kind of fun to watch me replay the intro of this game and listen to some of the developers talk about some of the internal structuring and the details of this. But yeah, this is a lot of fun. Thanks for suffering with the Squidward footsteps and shit like that. But yeah, man, I've done a Half-Life 2 marathon. I did a bunch of the original expansion packs, and you know, Lost Coast and everything. So if you really want to see more Half-Life content, there's plenty on the channel. But during this month, you'll get more stuff. We'll play the Entropy mod. We'll play a fake Half-Life 3. There's tons of stuff coming up for this, so happy 20-year anniversary for Half-Life 2. One of the greatest fucking video games ever made. I hope that one day we'll actually get Half-Life 3. But, you know, I think, in a way, I'm also happy if it never comes out. Because, one mantra or rhetoric that I have in my head is that some games are not so good. But Half-Life will always remain that good, so I always go back and play it. Okay? Because this game stands the test of time. It has aged maybe texture-wise, but gameplay-wise, character-wise, still one of the greatest games of all time. So, you know, I wanna say thank you, Gabe Newell. I wanna say thank you, Gorben Freeman, and all the rest. And I wanna especially thank the Half-Life, you know, community, Garry's Mod. You made you got me a lot of friends over the years. Love it. You got me interested into like sound design, in fact, because I remember back in the day, I'm like, oh, that's a weapon sound, okay. But most importantly, before I sign off here to the next game, I want to say big shoutouts to Garry's Mod for essentially destroying the world by creating Skibidi Toilet. Happy anniversary, Half-Life. May you have another 40 years soon where we can look back on this and go, remember Half-Life 2? Okay. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. I'll be back with something else shortly, so don't go nowhere.